Okay, so I just found another paragraph here that supports what I've been saying. Surprise, surprise. He was happy, defiantly happy, defying the situation of his life. Powerfully happy, talking to us, teasing us in ways I'd never heard before. He had once been remote with a kindly smile that made him hard to approach. Now he was up close and laughing at us. And he wouldn't go away. It was as though he'd been turned inside out. This is good writing. And the true dad was showing. Swanking in the role of a cartoon slave, he'd become a frightening master to us. Now this is a good example of irony, right? By donning the face of a black face, this white man becomes more powerful. By putting on the face of an oppressed group, African Americans, particularly playing a slave, or the ultimate sort of oppressed person, he becomes more powerful. He becomes more powerful. He might be identifying with that sort of oppressed character. I'm not sure. I still have some things to work out there. But Dad is clearly in charge. He's clearly in charge. There's another little poem, song lyric that he reads. He spoke. All right, Dad yells for attention. I says, listen to Mr. Bones. He spoke so loud we jumped, and as we did, he banged and clicked his tambourine. He was like a drunk you couldn't talk back to, yet he hadn't had a drink. I ain't never done nothing to nobody. I ain't never got nothing from nobody. No time, and wait till I get something from somebody sometime. I'll never do nothing for nobody. No time. So this is this repressed sort of beast coming out in him. He searched our faces, shaking his head and moaned, nobody, no time. Was it a song? Was it a poem? Was it a speech? It was too furious to be entertainment. Even though it was painful to hear, it was being spoken by a man who had our full attention. This is a guy who, for his entire adult life, was trying to not be paid attention to. We had to listen. We couldn't look away. That proved that he was the opposite of the poor soul he was describing. He was stronger than we were, though I recognized the nobody he spoke of. It wasn't Mr. Bones. It was Dad. So just really, this is really strange, but really understandable stuff. This person that's been repressed in him. So before we get to the last paragraph, let's sum up a little bit here. This is a story about a man, not the dad, our narrator, how old, I don't know, 30, 40, looking back, right? Maybe even, when was this story written? In 2007? So maybe even looking back 30 years. This guy might be about my age. How about that? He's looking back and examining this short story, this story from his childhood when his father was Mr. Bones. And this is this man, again, our narrator, telling us the story from the perspective of an adult man, telling us the story of this episode from his youth when his father became both himself and someone else. So this is a great example of how we make sense of who we are. As I said in the first video, I'm always looking back, always. The older I get, the more I look back and I think about things I did with my father, cutting wood, and places I'd go with my dad. He was an absolutely fabulous, nice guy. My mom was very nice also. She wore the pants in the family. But great people, and I think about them all the time. I think about grammar school, and all of those things. That's when we were becoming who we are now, and to understand ourselves now, to find our way in the world at 51 or 18 or 30 or 60. I don't know how. Actually, I have no idea how old most of you are, but you're all adults. I know that because you're in college. You're in college. You're an adult. We start to look back and we start to make sense of who we are now by these stories from our youth when we were formed, right? When we were formed. And I know some of you are parents, right? And you have to remember someday your 4-year-old is going to be looking back, you know, at life now and trying to make sense of their life, or your 8-year-old or 12, probably more likely 10 or 12-year-old would be being formed, right? And someday looking back on this time. So there's a little pressure for you, parents. As I said, I'm a stepdad, so I had an important role in my stepkids' lives. They're 22 and 24 now. And I know they look back and think about growing with me, and I hope it's all positive. I hope it is. I did my best, and that's all we can do as parents or step-parents. So back up, Berninger. So we have a story. This is a middle-aged man looking back on this sort of couple of months of his childhood and trying to figure out who his dad is. And in doing that, he's trying to figure out who he is, right? He's examining himself by looking at this episode with his dad. And what he's realizing is when the dad was Mr. Bones, this loud, rude, singing the blues, I'm nobody character, that was not the dad not being himself. It was a big part of who he was. This middle-aged man is now realizing his father was turned inside out, and he was seeing the inside. Maybe in some ways the real dad, but also the real dad is this thoughtful man reading a book at the shoe store, trying to be kindly, trying to do his best as a husband and as a father. So it's all the sort of parts of his father that he is trying to make sense of. So early on this semester, I said one of the reasons we study stories is to learn how to study our own story. We study a fake story, right? We study fake stories in this book. You guys have PDFs. We study fake stories in these books so we can better understand our own stories, better understand the stories of people we know and love and people we meet. We study history to learn our national story, to better understand this moment in time in American history. So stories, learning, practicing, learning to study stories is so important to making a good life. It's hard, right? My life is really good. I have a nice job. The pandemic has altered how I do my job, but I still get paid. And I still connect with you guys in a different way. By the way, you're doing great with this distance learning. We're off to a really good start this semester. But you know, life is not easy. And the way we make sense of the present, to me, is by looking at the past, understanding our whole past, all the little episodes of our life, and building the present and the future out of it, hopefully for the better. Hopefully we're growing, learning, becoming deeper every day, every week, every year of our life. And like I said, you're all adults now, and it's time to keep growing and get serious about understanding who you are. You don't just stop learning and developing. So, last paragraph of the story. Second to last paragraph. Later, I got anxious whether he hummed. Later, this is after the show, they have the minstrel show. Later, I got anxious whenever he hummed Mandy or Rosie while shaving in the kitchen. But he didn't make any more jokes. He didn't tease or taunt us anymore. Watching him through the side window at the store, he's still going and watching his father through the glass, almost like he is as an adult watching his father through time. Watching him through the side window at the store, I saw him standing near the cash register, smiling at the front door as though to welcome a customer. So the father's sort of back to kind of a phony smile. But when you're in sales and sometimes even education, you have to do that. The following year, there was talk of another minstrel show, but nothing happened. We had a TV set by then. Live entertainment suffered when everybody got TVs. And the news was of trouble in Little Rock, school integration, black children protected by National Guardsmen, and white crowds shouting abuse at the frightened students who were being liberated. Our bald-headed president made a speech on TV. Dad watched with us, saying nothing, perhaps thinking about how Mr. Bones had been liberated too, or banished. It was not what Dad had expected. The expression on his face was vacant, the real Dad, right? The expression on his face was vacant, stunned with sorrow. But before long, he was smiling. So this little last paragraph is important. And I think the message here is that his dad was not an ardent racist. We all have racial biases that are hard to escape and we need to work to understand. But the fact that the father, his expression goes blank, vacant, stunned with sorrow at this TV footage of National Guardsmen protecting black children, military protecting black children, so a school can go from all white to white and black. The father is just, you know, sort of having a realization here. Maybe thinking back to his black face, I don't know. But it shows us the father does sympathize, and maybe, just maybe, by putting on black face, he is somehow connected. And this is the first I've thought of this, so this is an incomplete thought on my part. Bear with me. Bear with me, people. This last paragraph, I think maybe he has, by putting on that makeup, sort of maybe understood a little bit more about the other race, and this is why he's sorrowful when he sees that military has to escort black children into a school. So, yeah, good story, good story. So minstrel shows are, people still once in a while do stupid stuff like put on blackface, celebrities. I don't know what they're thinking. It is a racist, terrible thing to do. You watch that CBS Sunday morning video I sent you about minstrel shows. It's only 8 minutes. And that tells you, you know, there's some very bright people who have studied this on there talking about it. But it's very simple. It's very horrible and racist on one hand. And then it's also sort of this complex. I'm white. I'm fascinated with being black. I'm going to put on blackface. I'm going to act black. It's this sort of mixing of race in a way. So on one hand, it's very simple racist horror, and on the other hand, it is a sort of complicated, as a lot is with race relationships, this complicated thing. So anyway, Mr. Bones, I hope you enjoyed that story. I hope you got something out of our little talk here, and keep up the good work, people. The semester's just getting started, but I have a feeling it's going to go by pretty fast. So drop me an email, Berninger at SUNY CGCC if you need me, and we'll see you on the internet.